All right, it's that time. Another road to release. We're getting you ready for the release of Out of the Park 26, March 14th. And of course, the pre order link is in the description. If you want to jump on that opportunity right now, get the game 3 days early, get 10% off, get free bonus packs as well, a gold pack, a diamond pack, and a choice pack. And that's a perfect segue with our guest today on Road to Release, Paul Sporer, Director of Content for Perfect Team. Paul, thanks for coming on with us.
Dr. D, I appreciate you having me, man. It's great to speak with you.
All right. Well, I know you don't have much time to speak because you're flying. You've got so much going on right now. You're preparing launch deck and all the things that are going to be coming, all the cards, all the, the licensed players that are going to be a part of this. There's some curveballs, some new additions this year. We're going to touch a lot of bases, but I want to start off this broadcast, this interview for the new folks especially. So there are people who may not have played Out of the Park in the past, and it's a game that's been around for a quarter of a century now, counting. Perfect Team is a relatively new aspect in the scope of things. Could you explain for the folks at home who are either base gamers who play Out of the Park without getting into Perfect Team, or the people who are just diving into Out of the Park for the first time, what exactly is Perfect Team?
So Perfect Team is our card collecting mode in the same vein as like Diamond Dynasty if you come from the MLB The Show community, or the Ultimate Team modes over in the EA Sports realm. Now, obviously, the biggest difference here is that you're not getting on the sticks. You don't have to have controller skills to succeed here. We're all about the mind. We're the Moneyball folks, We're diving into the spreadsheets and we're managing and roster building here, and then it's a simulation. So you build your team up against other folks. It's a card collecting mode as well as a team building mode, and you can kind of play it both ways. Some people love to just collect as many cards as possible, finish as many missions as possible, and put together the best team they can within that. Others are all about putting together the best possible teams for our tournament scene that we have, which is very robust, as well as our league scene. And I love the way leagues work. Basically, you take your team and collect your cards, and every day of the week is a month of the season, Monday through Saturday, with the playoffs on Sunday. And it sims every 30 minutes. You can change your lineups, you can change your strategies, but then it's simmed out against another, human opponent, and you kind of see where it goes. And we start to see the data build up, and guys can start slow and get hot. Going through league can be tough when you see someone struggling through May, and you're like, oh God, I want to get rid of them. But if you're coming from the base game, you know better than to just dump a player 6 weeks into the season without giving them a chance to return. Trust the ratings on the card. Let the guys come back to their level. Then, of course, we have our tournaments, which has just grown in scope over the years of Perfect Team and just expanded. You talked to Nico recently on Road to Release, and he heads that up, and he's really taken that to the next level with the perfect drafts, with the tournaments, and that's just other ways to play with the card pool, because obviously in league you're trying to get the best cards possible. So give me my diamonds, give me my perfects. Some golds early on are definitely going to have some viability, but as we move along, most people's teams are going to be diamond and perfect late. Well, what do you do with the lower tier cards? That's where the tournaments come in, because we have tournaments catered directly to those levels. You want to play all iron cards? Boom, we have iron tournaments for that. You want to play all bronze? Same thing, and all the way up. Now, the leveling is different this year, so iron and bronze are together, silver and gold, but you can utilize your entire deck however you want. And there's a lot of different ways to play. Just as there is with the base game, Perfect Team offers different avenues to play, and just the way that this game has grown over the years has been really impressive. I think we're in a great spot. I think we took some big swings in 25, learned a lot from them, from the community, and now have come back to the plate here in 26. And I think we're going to be well positioned to continue to expand on those things and to continue to make one of the best baseball games out there, and definitely the best simulator out there.
And we'll be diving into some of those tweaks and improvements from 25 to 26. Sporer, one thing I think probably you want to start off really strong, right? You want to have a good balance of cards from day one where people are opening their first packs. How do you strike that balance? And what kind of statement do you want to make about Perfect Team from day one when people open those first packs?
So a couple things. One thing is we came out with something called Combinators last year, which were upgradable cards. And again, it was a big swing that didn't go perfectly. I'm not above admitting that. I don't think anybody that's on the team is above admitting that and owning that. But We've taken a lot of feedback from the community. We've reworked them out with combinators, in with variants. This is not just the classic lipstick on a pig name change thing. Things are way different. First and foremost, you will now get a variant in your 6 starter pack. So you're starting with a variant to kind of understand the mechanism of the upgradable cards and kind of see where you're going with it, if it's something that you really want to dive into and be a part of and get your team started. In addition, we're going to improve the launch deck. I think it expanded too much last year. I think it was our biggest launch deck by far. I'm in my 3rd year on the gig, and I think it's the 6th or 7th year of Perfect Team overall. But I think it was pretty easily the biggest launch deck, and it was simply too big. And the problems that come with it being too big is the card dilution, the balancing. There were just issues that I don't want to have this year. So we've tightened it up, we've slimmed it down, and I think we've taken a big step forward with these launch deck missions that I'm coming out with that are going to be in addition to the live series. Generally, when we start a game, you're collecting live series cards, which are the current day players, in their uniform and everything. Get your Aaron Judge on the Yankees, your Tarek Skubal on the Tigers, that sort of stuff. And then you get rewards for collecting, 20 cards from the Tigers, 20 cards from the Red Sox, but then collecting the whole team gets you another card and you build that up. Those are staples. That's not going anywhere. But that's usually been all you could really do early on. I created a bunch of launch deck missions. So now the launch deck itself is going to have chase-worthy cards, not just in terms of chase them for the mission, but also the quality of them has been upped. Tried to improve the launch deck much better from last year, and ideally the best launch deck we've ever had, so that day one, you have reasons to want to chase your packs and open them and not just kind of deal with, looking for the one gem out there. There's a lot of different ways to go with it. So I'm very excited about adding these launch deck missions in addition to the live series ones so that we've got content flowing from day one.
Paul, obviously you're probably among the most transparent people out there, and we appreciate the candor that you're able to bring to the process. And that's one of the things I like most about Out of the Park is that it's a two-way street, that you guys often listen, probably more than people would probably give you credit for, whether that's on Discord, that's the forums, that's in chat, on Twitch streams, YouTube comments, you name it. So as let's kind of shift that focus now when we're talking about, you mentioned specifically variants. Can you give us a little more insight on what that will look like in regards to what we had last year with combinators? As you put in your own words, this is not just a name change. This is a different core. What makes it so different and unique?
So the simple fact is they were overpowered last year. I would say specifically so at the lower levels. And it got to a point where, especially when you throw in the chemistry impact that was with them, which people termed combistry, combinator chemistry there, made them super overpowered as you built full teams of them. Once you started getting into the 20s out of your 26 players and then all the way up to 26 players, it just became these powerhouse units. They weren't unbeatable. You could still beat them, but let's be honest, it was, needle in a haystack, David versus Goliath type stuff, as opposed to something that's more of like a 55-45 type of thing. It felt more like a 75-25. And I'm sure some of the modelers out there have the exact numbers, but the teams became behemoths. So the first thing is they're scaled back a bit. Still viable, still useful, still want to upgrade them, get the boostable cards, these variants on your ball club, but they're not just going to be the automatic overpowered must-have at every position. You can still have base cards that are going to be viable there, and you don't necessarily need to go for 26 combinators, again, variants this year, but you don't need to necessarily go for 26 of them because of that chemistry impact. Combistry has been old yellered. It's gone. That is a huge impact that's going to bring down their power level as well, in addition to the actual raw numbers of boosting them up being scaled down. So I think that's just going to bring the playing field back down a bit, okay? Because first off, there's a rarity to them too, that not only were they a bit overpowered, but they were difficult to get too. And to that end, it kind of rewarded the folks who were just kind of around a lot and able to kind of snipe a bunch at some discounted prices. Because if you're not a big-time Perfect Team player who's in the tournament scene, even with the red border kind of signifying that something was different here with again, Combinator last year, variant this year, you would just sell this iron for $8,000. I don't usually get $8,000 for an iron. This is great. it might have been like a 50,000 card, 50,000
Yeah.
perfect point card. Now we have an auction system, and it is the auction system that was back in the early days for the entire card shop, but it is just for variants. And variants will be up for 48 hours, giving everybody a fair shake to get a look at them, see what's out there. And I think they're going to go for a much more fair price now, especially those lower tier ones that, again, newer players just might not know what they have, right? And we don't want people getting taken advantage of. Right. Obviously, you can only equip people with as much knowledge as possible, but it's on us to give them that knowledge the best that we can. And where that knowledge can be bridged, the gap there can be bridged, is to have a system with the 48-hour auctions that allows those prices to go up. And then maybe somebody realizes, whoa, I put this up for 10K. It's already up to 100K. I did not know what I had on my hands. And they can get a fair price for a card that they landed on. Meanwhile, the people that want to go for them, the people in bronze that are all vying for it, they can have an equal fight as well. And it's not just who's on their computer at the right time. Now, when the auction ends, sure, there is going to be some of that where it's like who's there at the last minute. But if you put in the biggest bid that you're most comfortable with, and you might have a work meeting when that auction closes, sure, you might still get beaten, but at least you got beaten by your best. It's not because somebody was around and caught Aaron Savali. He was a big hot iron at the end of the year. It's not because somebody caught one at 20K when he was going for like upwards of $1 million, that very first one there. You can at least feel comfortable that I gave it my best shot. I put up 250K for whatever this card is. Somebody put 250 and one extra point on there. Okay. So, it's not. Don't let what's the phrase? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I think this is a major step forward, and I do understand that. Okay, there's still going to be some things, but compared to last year, you got to think about where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I've been telling a lot of Tigers fans this with Gleyber Torres coming to the team. Not everyone's super geeked about Gleyber Torres coming to the Tigers, and I'm like, think about where we were last year at the position. I think about who he's replacing, not so much what he does in a vacuum. That's kind of how I see it here with the auction house, which I think is a colossal step forward that we will continue to iron out, take feedback from the community, and make even better. But I think as a starting point, it's a great spot for variants to be in, for everyone to feel like they can get a much more fair shake at getting the best variants out there, and the people who pull them getting a fair return on their gem pulls that they might not be aware of because they are lower tier cards.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. That when you have this that clearly needed some work from last year as far as balance issues going from year one to year two, but also remembering why you did it in the first place. And a lot of the reason was that you had all these cards, these lineups that were just identical on both sides. So we're trying to get variety, and that's the name of the game. Okay, so let's talk about the theme weeks. I thought this was this is one of my favorite parts of it, because then you start guessing what themes are going to happen. What's so first of all, Paul, could you just lay out for the new folks out there what theme weeks are and what we can look forward to in Out of the Park 26?
So generally in League, it is run in what's called the modern settings. And I know that there's been some, nothing like super negative, but more kind of like poking fun of like, we're still calling 2010 modern, which again, I get it, right? Because we're now 15 years clear of that. But in the relative scale of baseball, it still does represent more of the modern day baseball. And I think we could update that or whatever. But generally speaking, if you see something that says modern settings, it emulates the 2010 season. And that is the baseline for League. So you can go to a place like Baseball Reference. They have a great page where you can compare years. So if you're playing in a tournament that cycles it back to dead ball, in 1908 or something, you can compare it to 2010 and see how that's going to be different versus, how many home runs are hit, how many stolen bases, etc. We've now brought that into League, where throughout these different weeks throughout the season, we shift back to a time in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. I think the latest we go back is the 60s. We don't want to go too far back because we don't want to do dead ball stuff. It could be a little bit too wonky for League. And I think we like to kind of stay 60s and above because that's also post-integration. So we want to kind of, for a couple different reasons there that we are staying 60s and above. However, this year, we're not going to go directly in order. It was new last year, so we went, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, zeros, tens, and kind of went that way. This year, they're going to be mixed up a little. And so what happens is during that week, we shift back to say 1969, which is what we did last year. The league will play like 1969, and the content will be 60s driven. And that will include TWIP, This Week in Perfect Team, the show we do on Thursdays, and T4, which is the Tuesday Tourney Treasure Trove, which we have out, where I put out lower tier cards, gold and below, and those will all follow suit with that particular theme as well. And this year, so last year they were kind of an addition in season. We didn't know if how it was going to work and everything. So I couldn't necessarily plan for it at the very beginning of the content cycle. And, not to pat myself on the back too much, I think I did the best I could with the years that we picked to get players relevant to those seasons. Well, this year I can cordon off those MVPs, those sides, those rookies of the year from those particular years so that those cards can come out during their theme week. And it's not just, there'll still be general 60s that come out during that particular week. But let's say we pick 1963 this year. That's not the year we're picking, so don't think that I'm giving anything away there. I can get the MVP from 1960 and have that ready to go, as opposed to this year when they were able to tell us that we were able to do it a little bit into the cycle. I might have already put out that MVP or whoever it was. So I'm very, very excited about bringing theme weeks back. I think that they were a win. It was a fun way to play League in a different way. They didn't always require great changes. Like obviously when we do like 2010s, if we did, I think we did 2014 last year. Well, that's not going to be that different. So you don't have to alter your roster that much. But when you talk about doing 1960s versus 2010, you can maybe get an extra hitter or two on your roster. Your starters are going to go longer, so the bullpen isn't as needed. Maybe you play a little bit more of like a small ball game as opposed to the power and eye game. So things change a little bit, and it's fun to do that for several weeks during the season. So those are coming back. I think we have 8 planned. Let me see if that's correct. Yeah, I've got 8 on the docket right now for the year. So I'm very, very excited to bring theme weeks back. I think they're going to be another big win and a lot of fun to do.
All right. Let's another thing that's going to be back this year that we're excited about is licensed players. And I don't know how you guys keep on pulling this rabbit out of the hat, but
Rich Grisham, baby.
Rich Grisham, that's what he does. Building those connections between Major League Baseball and out of the park. So obviously, clearly, we wouldn't be talking about it if it wouldn't be back this year. Dare I say, bigger and better than ever before. We can't tell you all the things that are coming, and I mean, I could try to bribe you and get you to tell me some. Just today, for the purposes of this broadcast, road to release, can you give me one? Just one licensed player that we can get.
Of course I can.
Art that we're going to see that player, real action or portrait photo, their name, their likeness, everything. Who we got? Who can we tease for Out of the Park 26?
So just to step back real quick,
yes,
we have licenses with MLB, the Hall of Fame, and things like that. And that affords us a lot of great stuff. We can use names freely. Not Barry Bonds, he's not part of the Players Association. We know that. And then there's certain guys that are on well. But generally we have access to hundreds of thousands of players. Maybe not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of players. We have to use dummy picks. We can use the logos and everything, but we don't have the rights to everybody because that's a different license. However, in recent years, our main man, Rich Grisham's been pounding the pavement, getting these wonderful contracts. So you've seen pictures of Lou Gehrig, Roberto Clemente, Jackie Robinson, and I'll tell you for free that he's returning this year after a year off. We had David Ortiz come onto the scene this year, and I can tell you that one of his chief rivals will be joining in the form of Mr. Derek Jeter.
Wow.
And I got to say, I'm not dodging the Yankee fan allegations with that one, but I'm not the one making these contracts. Everyone makes fun of me for being a Yankees fan because we put out a bunch of Yankees. I'm sorry that they're the richest organization in baseball history. I'm actually a bit of a Yankees hater if I'm going to tell the truth about it, but I respect the organization and the amazing rich history that they have, and bringing Jeter into the fold going to be a lot of fun. He's an interesting card for our game, right? Because defense matters. And let's just be honest about it. His defense isn't always the best. Now, there is a year or two out there where the defensive metrics really do stand out well enough that we can create a top tier card for him. But in those other years, it's really deciding to trade off that bat for a little bit of a hit over at shortstop. So I'm very excited that we have Jeter. We've got some great pictures lined up for him. Obviously, he is an icon of the game, one of the best ever. You can say what you want about the defense. It's worthy of critique, but you cannot deny that he is a total legend, a walk-in, slam dunk Hall of Famer, and just one of the best players ever. So Rich was able to Derek Jeter, and I'm very excited to incorporate him in the game. And, you know, lengthy career that had the different levels. One thing I will say about somebody like Lou Gehrig, he's too good. You know how hard it is to make irons and bronzes for freaking Lou Gehrig?
There's
I think I get it. I do the best I can with it, kind of embellishing strikeout rate this year to kind of push the card down a little bit and things like that. But he's so good. Derek Jeter obviously was never like terrible, but he wasn't always this big power monster and everything. So there is an evolution that will allow me to easily give you several different Derek Jeter cards over the year. And I'll also tell you that he will be part of those launch day missions.
All right, you heard it here first on Road to Release. Derek Jeter is coming to Out of the Park 26. Cannot wait for that. Folks, remember, you can pre-order. Use that link in the description. That gets you early access to the game 3 days ahead of launch day, which is March 14th. And it gets you 10% off. And it gives you a bonus gold pack and a bonus diamond pack and a bonus choice pack. And with all that we've laid out, I can't believe you're not smashing that link right now to get in on the pre-order. We're here with Paul Sporer. He is the director of content for Perfect Team for Out of the Park. Let's go to PTCS and PTMS and the rewards for playing these. These are tournaments that you can get into. You can get rewarded for playing daily tournaments, different style tournaments to accrue points to get into these tournaments. It's like the best of the best to get in there, right, and to get these amazing rewards. What did you learn about last year's experience with PTCS and PTMS? And then where are we going with 26?
So, you know, going back to the community feedback and being in tune with that and listening to the folks out there, the simple fact is the overwhelming word, they came up a bit light with those rewards. They weren't quite as impactful as a lot of folks felt like they should have been relative to what you were doing. You know, you're competing all month to qualify for the PTCS, and then you're going through a gauntlet on that Saturday, usually the first Saturday of that next month. Sometimes it changes a little bit based on the schedule there, but it is within one of those first Saturdays of the month. And it's a wonderful event, right? Last year, when we had the segmentation, it was 10 different events. I think this year will be 7. I forget what Nico had on that, because we've changed it a little bit.
Sure.
But it's all the PTCS tournaments, and you go through and you win this big event, and people felt like the reward maybe just came up a bit short, especially at that top end there. Some of the mid and lower tier ones, because you get rewards all the way up. And if you win it all, you get all the rewards, and you get wherever you stop, you get all the rewards below it. So if you come in, third, fourth, you get all the rewards for 5th through 8th, 9th through 16th, et cetera, et cetera. And the word was, hey, some of those low and mid tier rewards, those banged. Those really worked out. Those were fun. But when it came to the big dogs, they came up a bit short. And let's be honest, it should probably be the other way, right? If it's going to have to be one way. I don't want it to be either feeling like they're short, though. I want the whole prize pack to feel like it's something that you achieved. You can show these cards off. They got the PTCS belt on them. You put them in your lineup. The PTMS cards are totally different, by the way, because they have a totally different look to them. That's an even more special event where there's only, 4 PTMSs over the course of the year, I believe. So I totally understand that. Feedback heard. And those are going to be pumped up. They're going to be better this year. I want people to feel like, hey, I want to be showing this off, not just because I want it as like a trophy. I know some people kind of kept cards in their lineup there to show off that they won a PTMS or PTS, but they didn't feel like that was the best card that they had at the time. I wanted to feel like, hey, I got to get this guy in my lineup, not just because I won and I want to show that off, but because he's awesome. And so, again, message received, and look for those rewards to be at a better level this year than they were last year.
Okay, again, we're here with Paul Sporer talking about Road to Release, specifically Perfect Team. And we've talked about the engagement between you and Out of the Park and the community, specifically listening to the forums. One thing I want to talk about is there are other assets, other ways. I know you and Nico work side by side a lot. You know, he's working the tournament front and a lot of different things as far as Perfect Team, and then you're working more the cards themselves. I just love that there's this dialogue, because you're not coming into this, Paul, saying I've got all the ideas, I'm just going to use it. You are getting inspired by Nico and also streamers and members of the community to put that content into play for people in Perfect Team.
Yeah, we actually came up with a set on one of my streams. I think it might have been PTMS. I stream every time I'm in the PTCS or I'm a player myself, folks. And so, I got eliminated and we were just kind of hanging out, doing a bunch of fun baseball stuff. And I forget exactly if it was like, hey, let's talk about potential content sets or whatever, if it was a specific prompt like that. But one of our wonderful affiliates, an amazing streamer, Franchise Time Machine, had an idea. And he said, what about unassisted triple plays? Guys that have conducted an unassisted triple play. And right then and there on stream, we looked it up. We went on the Wikipedia to look up all of the ones that have been conducted, the unassisted triple plays. And I was like, yes, this is a content set. That is locked and loaded right there after we went through all of them, because I wanted to see like what the card quality would be. Is it a range of guys? Are they all like, are they all superstars? Are they all lamos? With all due respect, lower tier cards. But no, it runs the gamut, and it's going to be a content set this year. Unassisted triple play guys, brought to you by the community. And that is not the first time that communities had input on this. Again, I value the community feedback a ton. I can't do this job without feedback from the community, right? I have certain tools and things, but frankly, some people in the community have better tools. Like the models that they've created are so next level that it's like, dang, okay, they can kind of speak to card quality at a level that's even a level or two deeper than what I have available to me. So again, talking about different content things, I'm excited with some of the plans that I've come up with, not just for these launch deck missions, but for other things like the unassisted triple play. We did the perfect game set. That's kind of what the branch off was. That I'm remembering it now. We had our perfect game set this year. My favorite art of the year. The art team killed it. They took my vision and made. I have no art skill whatsoever. I can barely draw a stick figure, which is weird because I am one. But I have no artistic ability. But I had an idea. I wanted the perfect game. I wanted them to have like a little bit of the vibe of the Oscars, the like art style of the Oscars. And that's basically all I gave them. And I said, can you do it? That's what they came up with. It's my favorite art ever. We're bringing that back, by the way, and it'll be different. Obviously, it can't be different in terms of the players because the people who threw the perfect games are the people who threw the perfect games. But we're going to put a spin on it this year. We got it last year. We brought them all out. We even brought some guys who should maybe have perfect games, like Armando Galarraga for my Tigers, or Harvey Haddix, you look him what he did there. So there's some guys that got the almost perfect game tag. So we're bringing that set back, but with a spin. And I was like, I don't really know a hitter version of that, right? There's way too many cycles to do cycles or whatever. Maybe natural cycles now that I'm thinking about it. Guys that went single, double, triple homer in that order.
Yep.
That could be something perhaps. But that's when franchise landed on the triple play. Like I said, we went into the wiki. We looked up all the players. I'm looking at them right now. And blammo, new set. So I'm very open to feedback. One of our other great affiliates, Laptop Hound, runs a list each year of player suggestions from the community. Because during that T4, again, that's the Tuesday Tourney Treasure Trove, that I start a little bit into as a good way to supplement the lower tiers of content. And I take requests. And if people want a particular player that maybe I'm not thinking of, or I just hadn't, maybe I had them planned further down the list and couple people are requesting them, I'll move them up. I have some flexibility. Obviously, I've got my framework, the ideas of where we're going to go with things, but I usually have a spot or two where I can put somebody in there. And so I like to do community suggestions as well. So I am open to things. So even now, if you have content ideas that you think would work as a one-off, maybe it's only 5 or 7 cards of a particular theme, you can send it my way. I'm happy to listen. I can't obviously implement everything at just 100%. Once you say it, it's done, but I'm very, very open to listen.
All right, Paul, as we kind of start to wind down this interview, one of the things that's awesome about Out of the Park is what we call missions, right? So you complete a mission, you get a reward. So what is your mission for Out of the Park 26 as it relates to Perfect Team? You have a mission this year. If you choose to accept it, what is it? What do you want to accomplish this year?
The overall mission is to be better than last year, right? It's my 3rd year. I think again, not to backpedal or anything, but I think I took a step from year 1 to year 2. And from year 2 to year 3, I want to see another progression where the content is stronger. It starts right away with the launch deck. That's obviously, it launches the game. It is aptly named there, and it needs to be good. It needs to be better than it was last year, and it needs to be strong because it sets the foundation for everything, right? You get a card out there, and I know he became a fan favorite and he's around up here, but the Curry Foley card really bothered me. I didn't want that to come out. And, you know, it was supposed to be a hitter pitcher, but some algorithm changes happened a little bit after we had set some things. And so some cards got wonky. We weren't able to go and check all of them because, again, it was a little launch deck set. And I'm not here to cast aspersions. Things happen, but I didn't want a card that strong. So I want to make sure that we don't have things quite like that, so that we have balance and that people aren't just slotting somebody on their team for the entire year, because Curry Foley was pretty useful for pretty much the entire year. Now, I will say that's a little bit different than like a Chase Utley. Now, that came about in a funny way, the Chase Utley, and I say funny because I goof. I put Eddie Collins in for Philadelphia because my stupid brain said, oh, Philadelphia, he's Philadelphia. He's a Philadelphia Athletic, Paul. You got that wrong. So when I was unveiling some of the division rewards there, the chat very promptly let me know, like, hey, doofus, that's not the Philadelphia that you think it is. So I had to pivot on the fly, and I went to the Utley, and he was a bit overpowered, right? He was a wonderful card, but he was also super accessible. And so when a card is you know, maybe a bit overpowered, as he was, but also remarkably accessible to people, I have less of a concern with that. Now, I'm not saying that I'm doing that again in bringing back another card that's going to run wild, literally run wild, the base stealing god. But that's not in the same realm to me as like the Curry Foley. And for people that don't remember the Curry Foley or don't play Perfect Team, this was this iron pitcher who was a pretty terrible pitcher, but he was an amazing hitter. He's basically like a silver or gold level hitter masquerading as an iron pitcher, but he was an overall card as an iron, so it made him this big time gem in the iron landscape. I don't mind some guys being sneaky two-way players that have a little juice. This was more than a little bit of juice. So again, we really wanted to focus on the launch deck, setting the tone for the entire year. The content plan, I think, is as tight as it's been in terms of mapped out into the future. You know, obviously can't do this like week to week. There would not be enough time to not know like what's coming out the next week. So I've always got, you know, the next several weeks in mind and where we want to be at the end. But now, second year of boostable cards variants this year, knowing that theme weeks are going to be here, knowing that the rating scale, you know, has changed and how that is. You know, we had Moonball last year, which as the cards got up in rating, it was a different brand of baseball. It was basically every game was. And we didn't want that. I don't think the users wanted that. I don't think we at the team wanted that necessarily. And so that is being addressed. We want to open up the scale so that we can go further with the creep as the season goes, but we can't have Moonball again. And so we're testing things out in the beta. There's a lot of great cards out there that are super overpowered right now. Guys with the two, see how it's going. And I think the early returns are that Moonball is being properly quelled. And so that's something we need to stay diligent on because those are things that we want to fix. We want to make sure Moonball isn't there. Deck is good. We want to make sure that the PTCS, PTMS rewards feel very rewarding. And we want to have a great season where people are chasing the content, building the teams how they want, and having a great time playing Nico's tournaments, playing League, and both really, right? Because I think League's been a little bit, I don't want to say forgotten, but it kind of gets put off to the side there with the Clubhouse shop coming in, which we didn't even really dive into. I think you might have gotten into that with me.
We did, yeah.
Correctly. That's going to help League create a better dynamic there. If you're more of a League player and you're like, man, I never get those tournament rewards. Well, now the Clubhouse shop is basically taking the place of the tournament batches so you can have access to those cards. So I've gotten really long-winded on this answer, but the mission is to have another great year. I thought last year was still really good, despite some of the issues that we had. We took those issues down. We've tried to learn from them, and we're trying to create a better game this year. And I really feel confident. I cannot wait for launch. I'm very excited for everyone to get their hands on 26 and start playing.
All right. With that, we say thank you, Paul. And the excitement is mutual. It's contagious. And I think everybody's kind of feeding off of that. And where Out of the Park has been in the past, where it's heading. Future is bright. The sky is the limit, and we're lucky to have you and your insight, your time, your energy, your passion, your insight and your knowledge, all of that, and most importantly of all, and I think this speaks to why Out of the Park is where it is today. It's adaptability, its willingness to grow and learn from things, and then continue that upward trend. So, Paul, thank you for everything you do, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it.